This is the 4-Wheel Parts Down and Dirty Show Off-Road Edition, powered by Polaris RZR. We're taking it back to the roots, getting dirty and covering all things off-road, because pavement, well, that's for it's gloves off, in your face, on the edge, and the way off-road should be. We're your definitive source for all things dirt.
4WP is more than a store. We're truck and Jeep experts and have been for over 50 years. From wheel and tire upgrades to full custom builds, 4WP has you covered. Whether you want to order the best parts online or shop in store, do the work yourself, or get it done by a pro, all roads lead to 4WP. Do your rig right. Shop online or find your store at 4WP.com.
Welcome to the 4-Wheel Parts Down and Dirty Show Off-Road Edition, powered by Polaris RZR. Jim Beaver here, kicking off the show. We've got a big Vegas to Reno recap coming at you. I think you guys are definitely not going to want to miss this one if you're a desert racing fan. Lots to talk about. I got my good friend Chris Leone, my media director at the Down and Dirty Radio Show, the website, everything else. You know him from the national show. He does power rankings. He also works with iRacing. He's on the show to dissect and recap all things Vegas to Reno. So, yes, stay tuned for that. It's going to be a great show. I think an hour plus long with Chris. And I don't know, we talk a lot about off-road in general and things to come. Crandon next week, I will be heading out there. Doesn't mean we don't have a podcast. Just means I will be on the road to Crandon next week and hosting a live stream. Definitely, you want to check that out. The live stream next weekend. I mean, it's the biggest, baddest off-road race on the planet. 50th anniversary Red Bull Signature Series. You can't ask for much more. So that all happening next weekend at Crandon over Labor Day. So, yes, Jim Beaver again here. We are kicking things off. Do want to give a plug to the national radio show this week. Please go over, check us out. It will be dropping the day after this one. Might already be out, depending on when you listen to this. But we're going to have Leah Pritchett, yes, Top Fuel winner, and she is just an all-around badass. She's going to be on the show, as well as Seth Quintero, UTV Slayer, the undefeated season going on in Best in the Desert for Seth. Yeah, he's going to be on the show. We'll have a double dose of power rankings. We'll also have Tiffany Stone calling in to talk all things off-road, and it's going to be a big, bad radio show. You definitely want to check it out. Please go to iTunes, hit the subscribe button to the Down and Dirty Radio Show. It helps us out, helps me out, and lets us know that you are listening. And please leave a rating or review when you get a chance. Just hit the 1 through 5 stars. It takes like 2 seconds to do it. Just give us a quick rating, and much appreciated for those of you who do. So, all right, we are going to take a short break, and we'll get into dissecting Vegas to Reno when we return right here on the 4-Wheel Parts Down and Dirty Radio Show Off-Road Edition, powered by Polaris RZR. You want extreme performance, reliability, and the most fun you can have on 4 wheels? The Polaris RZR brings it to you. But you don't need to take my word for it. You can take theirs.
I'm Tanner Faust, and I choose the Polaris RZR because it's the most fun you can have with a steering wheel.
What's up? I'm Ronnie Renner, and I choose Polaris RZR because it's the sickest, most reliable side-by-side on the planet.
What's up, everybody? Heavy D from Diesel Brothers. Listen, I'm on Team RZR because it's hands down the best piece of machinery on the planet.
I'm RJ Anderson, and I choose Polaris RZR because it's the most fun, most capable machine.
Action sports stars, TV personalities, and some of the best race car drivers in the world all choose Polaris RZR because it's the ultimate combination of power, suspension, agility, and fun. Find out more information on the web at PolarisRZR.com or follow at Polaris RZR on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and use the hashtag RazorLife to share your story. When looking for a new wheel for your off-road vehicle, car, truck, or UTV, the choice is easy. You choose what the pros use. Rob McCachran, Keegan Kincaid, and myself, Jim Beaver, all exclusively use Vision Wheel, whether we're dominating Baja, taking the cup at Crandon, or shredding UTVs. Vision Wheel's trend-setting designs and durability will set you apart from the competition and your friends. Check out VisionWheel.com or at Vision Wheel on social media to learn more. Anywhere is possible. It's more than just a slogan. Anywhere is possible with General Tire's wide variety of tires for whatever it is that you drive. Whether you're looking for off-road capability balanced with impressive on-road performance or ultra-high performance offering all-season traction designed with a driving enthusiast in mind, General Tire has what you need to get where you're going. General Tire, providing anywhere is possible with the Down and Dirty Radio Show since 2012. Do you race or are you a weekend warrior? Have you checked on the date on your helmet recently? Don't get caught off guard by using an outdated helmet. Impact Racing, the leader in motorsport safety, has new SA 2015 helmets to fit your budget. Whether you're looking for a helmet with a full carbon fiber shell to take you to victory at the Indy 500, or just looking for some helmets for a weekend at Glamis, Impact Racing has a helmet for you. Find out more information at impactraceproducts.com or on Facebook at Impact Safety. Super ATV is the industry leader in aftermarket UTV and ATV parts and accessories. Super ATV products are designed, engineered, tested, and manufactured right here by Super ATV. Whether you're looking to upgrade your suspension, get stronger axles, or you're looking for a new winch to get you out of a tough spot, Super ATV has what you're looking for. And since we know you're in a hurry, we offer fast, free shipping to the lower 48 states on all orders. Visit superatv.com now and get your UTV or ATV dialed in. All right, welcome back to the Four Wheel Parts Down and Dirty Radio Show Off-Road Edition, powered by Polaris Razor. I'd like to welcome the Down and Dirty Radio Show Media Director, Chris Leone, to the show, who is making his Four Wheel Parts Off-Road Edition debut. You're kind of weekly helping me out with power rankings on the national show, but welcome to the podcast, Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. It's, we've been doing all sorts of stuff on the, on the regular Down and Dirty show, and we've been doing that for years, even dating back to my GRC days. So it's fun to actually make my debut on another property this week.
Yeah, well, and I know you. We also we help distribute the iRacing podcast. And I know you're kind of a weekly guest there on. I don't want to say guest. I guess you're like a permanent fixture on it over there on the iRacing podcast we distribute. And I know iRacing. Talking to off-road fans, obviously, I think people, listeners of the shows already know I'm, highly involved with iRacing. We've got the esports team and, and we've got the NASCAR, NASCAR Peak team. But I want to mention, I know a lot of our off-road listeners might not be aware of. I know there's a lot of stuff out there, but iRacing now, obviously endorsing the off-road side of things, been dealing with rallycross for a while, but Lucas Oil coming to iRacing a few months back, man, and that's it's been a pretty big deal, Chris.
Yes, sir. It's been pretty phenomenal, Jim. Lucas Oil Off-Road Racing Series coming to iRacing. It was actually, I believe it was one of our biggest days for content ever. Wow. When we launched Lucas Oil Off-Road in June. Right now, Wild Horse Pass Motorsports Park and Wild West Motorsports Park are the two tracks available, but people are going to hear very soon about some new facilities that we're going to be adding, and some of that stuff actually just got dealt with yesterday, right before coming onto the show. So I can't say anything right now, but people will know soon enough, and they're going to be really excited about some of the stuff that's coming. We've got the right now we have the Pro 4 and we have the Pro 2 for some of the newcomers that are just learning how to do some of our dirt road racing, as we call it. We have 4 license classes: oval, road, dirt oval, and dirt road. For the people who are just learning how to do that, we're actually going to introduce in our next build the Pro 2 light truck, which is the Pro 2 basically with a restrictor fitted on it so you can learn how to actually drive them. And that is actually going to be free content once you sign up. So we're definitely committed to, teaching iRacers how to drive short course off-road, and to everybody in the off-road community committed to bringing you in the same way that we did with Rallycross at the end of 2017, beginning of 2018. And so it's really exciting. It's been fun for me to be involved with that because it sort of marries these two worlds that I'm in, one with you and obviously one with iRacing. So a lot of exciting things on the horizon, and, just more and more content coming.
Yeah. It's, well, I'm sorry, I'm just getting sidetracked. My mind's going like a million different places right now here talking about this, but no, seriously. But, no, you were talking about the Pro 2 light truck. I'm assuming that would be kind of similar to Pro Light, but you guys are not having to do like a full build on it, right? So it would be like kind of Pro Light power, just in the bigger chassis, I'm assuming?
Yeah, essentially. I mean, one of the things that we've kind of been asked for, and this isn't an exclusive ask by our members in Just Dirt Road. We've kind of been asked this in different manifestations in different series as well, is just, hey, let's have something that kind of flushes out the ladder. And yeah, when you already have the Pro 2 and when all you need to do is essentially put a restrictor on it to make it a little more drivable and make sure that people are able to learn what they need to learn, then, that's essentially what we're doing with this Pro 2 light truck. And again, for anybody who hasn't used the iRacing service before, might need to get up to speed, might just be a total newcomer to sim racing in the first place, it's a place to learn good habits. It's, during the half a decade that I spent with GRC, that was always how we kind of framed the GRC Lights class, where the car was very similar in a lot of ways to a supercar. It just had half the power, so you could develop good habits. And that's what the Pro 2 Light is essentially going to do. Then you move up to, based on just the difficulty of driving the trucks, people tend to move to Pro 4 next with us, and then up to the Pro 2 being kind of our premier class in terms of how difficult it is to drive on the service. So the Pro 2 Light will give you that foundation. You get to the Pro 4 where you've got that all-wheel drive power, and then once you've conquered that, you go back to the rear-wheel drive with the Pro 2, and that'll be our highest license class. I believe as of the new season, that will be the first dirt road series that we've ever had at the C license level. So we're actually kind of building a ladder over here where people are able to advance in dirt road, which is our newest discipline, the same way that they advance through oval to get to the eNASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing series, the same way they do in road to get to the Porsche Esports Super Cup, so on and so forth.
Yeah, well, and that being said, anybody that's going to iRacing, keep in mind this is sim racing, people. Like, if you're going to iRacing, you think this is like, I don't know, one of those open world off-road games or something where you can just send it and your car is going to jump 10,000 feet or something like that, or like a dirt, or that is not what you're getting. You're getting actually real racing. It's the closest thing to being behind the wheel of a Lucas Oil off-road truck that, as you can possibly get. It's just, virtually. So definitely, I'm a big fan of iRacing, obviously, at this point. Everybody knows that. I know we've got a coupon code for iRacing too, Chris, on the website. And if you're on our website, listen to the show, we'll put the coupon there at the bottom of, the summary. But it'll get you 50% off your subscription there to iRacing. So it's a big deal. It'll help you get started. And I think people be really stoked on that.
Yes, sir. And I mean, we're always looking for new users. We're always looking to sort of evangelize all of these different racing series that we're involved with. People know iRacing fairly well as being involved with NASCAR, but we've got everything from World of Outlaws, where we've got both sprint cars and dirt late models, to, I mentioned Porsche earlier, but a really diverse array of road racing cars, sprints and midgets, rallycross cars, which, of course, I've been involved in that world for quite a while, so that was really exciting to me when iRacing launched that. And the defending iRacing Rallycross World Champion, I'm sure a lot of our listeners know fairly well, Mitchell DeYoung, who is actually one of the top iRacers in the world in a number of different series and is actually going after multiple championships right now on the road racing side of things. So, we've pretty much got anything that you could ask for. NASCAR, IndyCar, some Formula One cars in there, you name it, it's probably in there. And if it isn't there yet, then it's probably coming within the next couple of builds, to be quite honest. It's, again, yes, it is very different from, picking up a console and, gaming through that. It's, this is really built as a heavy duty simulation and as something that the pros use. You name it, and guys like Dale Earnhardt Jr., Kyle Larson, any series, they pretty much all swear by it. And we've definitely gotten a great response from some of the Lucas Oil off-road drivers who have picked it up recently and given us some feedback and gotten on board with it. So, use what the pros use. That's the kind of product that we're aiming to deliver. And, all of the iRacers out there, swear by it. Swear by us as the most realistic simulation out there. So definitely, if you haven't had a chance to try it out, or if you're looking for something a little more challenging and a little more realistic than what you might have right now, then I think we have the solution for you.
Yep, definitely. So I think it's time to switch gears and talk a little more off-road before we get into talking Vegas to Reno, because you were out there with me this past weekend. I will say I just got back to the office, and today I got a letter from Ford Performance, Chris, and Brian Bell, the brand manager for Ford F-Series and Raptor. And so I open it up, and it's a generic form letter that they send out to everybody that buys the Raptor. They invited me, Chris. It's actually free other than I have to pay for my travel and my hotel. But Ford actually wants to send me to Utah to go through an off-road driving school in my Ford Raptor. So I got a little chuckle out of that. So, yes, which makes me laugh because if you went to Vegas Arena, you see like half the trucks there. I mean, just about every trophy truck driver, everybody, Rob Mack owns a Raptor. I own a Raptor. Like, literally everybody owns Raptors, and I'm sure they all get this same letter. And what would be funny is, like, if all of us got together at one point and you have, like, 1 year from the time you buy your Raptor to go to this driving school, and everybody that buys a Raptor gets invited. But it would be funny if we got, like, me, Rob Mack, like some of the Herps guys, you know what I mean? Like some of these badasses. And we all decided to go to this Ford Raptor driving school in Utah. And we all show up and just play dumb. And it would be so fun. But I just got a chuckle out of it. I'm like, oh, man, Ford really doesn't know who they mail these letters out to, do they?
You know, Jim, the second that you said that, I just immediately thought of Billy Madison and how funny it would be to just go to one of these classes, be the only pro, and just basically Billy Madison the whole weekend.
It would be. Remember that old Jeff Gordon commercial where he's like the taxi driver? He goes on it was like a Pepsi commercial, I think, or was it Coke?
Yep.
I don't remember. I just remember it, but he was all in disguise, and he gets in the car, and I don't know if it was a rental. I can't remember the premise. Maybe he was a taxi driver, and he just went and completely just railed his car and had the guy scared shitless, and I can say that because it's a podcast. Had him completely scared shitless behind the wheel, and then like at the end of it, he like pulls off his mask or whatever, and it's Jeff Gordon. But do you remember that commercial? It was so epic.
Yeah, I do, actually. So they did two of them, and the first one, so funny. It was, I believe it was a car dealership, and the guy in the passenger seat was supposed to be the car salesman. And the second one, I think it was Travis Akulski. I think he was a Jalopnik at the time. Now he's at Road and Track, but Travis Akulski called BS on this thing about the stunt driving, because I guess they actually had a stunt driver do the first one. So Jeff Gordon essentially called his bluff, and the taxi driver one was the second one. And he said, "Oh man, I'm if I get one more strike on my record, I'm going back to jail." And then he guns it, and then just scared Travis half to death. And I remember that one was fantastic because it's always funny when you see somebody sort of get their comeuppance like that. And I remember Travis was a great sport about it, but
well, he's got to be.
That's what happens.
You call Jeff Gordon out, dude, and he comes, and he wants to defend himself. Like, you got to be a good sport about it. You know what I mean? Like, how can you not? You know?
It was such a great commercial. It was like spoiling Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny.
Yeah. Like, to me, to me, if I was him, I'd be so humbled that Jeff Gordon actually knew who the heck I was. You know what I mean? Like, that, to me, that would be a big deal, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm still surprised when some of the guys I worked with for years at GRC know who I am.
Yeah. Well, is it? You say that, but do they know you because they liked you or they hated you? Because I know there's stories about you getting sprayed in the face with champagne and all kinds of stuff. So we don't have to get into that, but they know you from one way or another, Chris.
Yeah, that's true, Jim. I'm not gonna throw anybody under the bus right now, though, about the champagne story. I don't think now's the time.
No, definitely not the time. I guess it's time to talk about Vegas to Reno, though. So we did have General Tire Vegas to Reno on tap. I know this is the second year I've drug you out to this race. I think you told me you were starting to feel bad, like you thought you were like our, I don't know, not our good luck charm, but our bad luck. Just I don't know. But I guess we broke whatever curse you thought was there, right?
Well, yeah, Jim. I mean, we actually broke that curse at UTV Worlds, but the first time I worked for you, the Parker 425 in like 2014, I think the engine let go in qualifying. Yeah. We didn't finish Vegas to Reno last year. I didn't make it to Parker for the UTV race in January and you finished. Then I was at the Mint and you didn't. And then finally UTV Worlds, finally I was there for a finish. So getting to General Tire Vegas to Reno and you being able to finish again was kind of a relief. I'm not going to lie, for me personally. But, you know, I was impressed enough as it was the first time I did General Tire Vegas to Reno last year. And I got to admit, now that I know what actually goes into finishing that race as opposed to what goes into getting halfway through that race, I guess I love it a little less because, God, I know how much it hurts, but it hurts real good. And once you get a couple hours of sleep in there, you know, it's all well worth it. So, you know, I would put that up there as one of the most challenging, if not the most challenging race in the United States, because just the logistical challenges on top of just the fact that it's a race of attrition. I mean, there is so much that goes into just finishing that race. And the fact that it took us about 12, 13 hours. I know that the winning trophy truck time, and obviously we were in a UTV, so a little different, but the winning trophy truck time still about 8 hours. And how many drivers, Ironman or Ironwoman this race, you know, especially the ones who do it on motorcycles and quads. I mean, those folks are nuts. Just an incredible event to be a part of, and, you know, really exhausting. I'm still kind of readjusting to Eastern time after flying back on the overnight, but, you know, I mean, talk about an incredible challenge. I mean, that is old school racing. The folks who don't like modern day racing, they don't like spec vehicles, they don't like things that don't have road relevance, go check out a desert race, and definitely an event like General Tire Vegas to Reno. I mean, you know, that is ultimate road relevance right there. Having to survive 500 miles through the desert, that's as road relevant as it gets.
Yeah, well, you know, and it's different. Like the 500 is crazy to finish, but it starts and finishes in the same spot. There's something about Vegas to Reno and the Baja 1000 for that matter, where they're point to point. You start in one city, you end in another. And like in the case of, you know, Vegas to Reno, you're all the way across the state. And it like during the race, it doesn't really set in because you've got a race car there and you're hopping pits. It's 30 miles here, 40 miles here, 30 miles here. And it all adds up at the end of the day. But then the next day when we turn around, Chris, and, you know, we're there in Carson City and we turn around and we got to come back. It's like, man, this is a hell of a drive. Like, it puts it into perspective, you know? You literally are driving across an entire state. And, you know, I don't know. That I call that race an adventure. And it truly is. Like, it's, you know, and just to finish it, and I don't even know what we officially finished. It was in the 20s. But to just finish, like, it's such an accomplishment. And, you know, and I don't mean that because that's what I did. I'm just, you know what I mean? It's anybody. You know, there's people finishing at, you know, 7 a.m. the next day, 8 a.m. Like, anybody that finishes, I don't care what your time is, like, it's an accomplishment to get to the finish line of that. I say the same thing about the Baja 500 and the Baja 1000. There's something about these long-distance races that are just so – there's so much that can go wrong because they're so long, and it's like it's just crazy, you know, to get to the finish. And to win that race, I think you told me you've got an appreciation for the people who win just that much more, because I feel like to win that race, you know, and I think this even puts the Baja 1000, especially the point-to-point, in even more perspective. Like, to win the 1000, you know, we've always said that's one of the biggest accomplishments in motorsports. You know, I put Dakar, the 1000, Indy 500, you know, Le Mans, you know, 24 hours of Daytona 500, you know, and you got to throw Monaco in there just because it's Monaco. But, I mean, to win those races, you know, especially with the distances and things like that, I mean, I put the 1,000 right up there with, you know, with the biggest races in the world to finish it on top. You know, if you can win that, like, to me, that's, you know, that's a bucket list. You can call it the Triple Crown or the Quadruple Crown or whatever. Like, to me, it's, you know, it's the pinnacle.
No doubt, Jim. And I mean, just to kind of put it in perspective, I mean, I'm sitting in a conference room in the iRacing offices out in Bedford, Massachusetts, doing this interview, and I'm just looking out the window and just what it looks like in this portion of America versus what it looks like going out to Nevada, out to Arizona, out to Utah, just how different it is. I mean, for me, coming into that world, I have a whole different appreciation because, I mean, for a lot of things, for the racing, first of all, because obviously the logistical challenges, but damn, dude, I got a whole new appreciation for this whole country, just looking at how different it is and just how vast, and the mountains and the sky being as bright blue as it is. And, you know, I mean, geez, every time I'd go to just take a photo of something just to let people know where I was, you know, family back home and everything. I mean, everything just looked like it was straight out of a National Geographic or something. I mean, it's, if you live in that area, it's what you're used to. But I mean, if you're somebody who's been out there all the time and you see some of those other folks who are coming in from different parts of America or different parts of the world, just know those of us who didn't grow up with that, we have got a hell of an appreciation for just the scenery, the challenge, everything that goes on for a race like this. I mean, I'm not going to lie. This is going to sound bad the way I'm going to put it, but having finished a race like General Tire Vegas to Reno, I mean, you listed off a bunch of the most prestigious events in motorsport, and about half of them on the list, I know that they're still significant races and I still respect them, but compared to winning an event like this and what goes into an event like this, I kind of respect some of them a little less. They're a little lower on my list of, I guess, how impressed I am if somebody goes out and wins it. You know, it just, everything that it takes to win a race like Vegas to Reno, like the Baja, like Dakar, the fact that your pit crew, your service team is having to move with you, the fact that you've got logistical challenges far beyond just what you're doing in the race car, that is an ultimate team effort. And as you said, an adventure. I mean, just going through all of these different places. And, you know, for us, the fact that we were just contained in one state, I mean, you know, I got back and I went out to dinner with my girlfriend and her parents, and they were asking me about this race. And I mentioned the length, and we were just kind of looking at context. And, you know, they were like, so just how long is it? And I just kind of pulled up a map, and I was like, well, imagine that we drove to Washington, D.C. from here, you know, from here up in Massachusetts. And then the next day we had to drive back. And I don't know that my girlfriend's going to be coming out to any of these races anytime soon, because I think that overwhelmed her quite a bit. Sorry, honey. I know you're not listening, but sorry. But I mean, just I mean, you can tell I'm kind of at a loss for words, but that's what an event like this is. I mean, it really is an adventure. It is something that fascinates me from a logistical perspective. Just everything that needs to go right, everything that goes into doing these races. I mean, you know, last year we had the issue where the car broke down about halfway, and it broke down just short of a pit. But geez, I mean, knock on wood, and obviously it didn't happen this year, but what if you have issues getting the chase vehicles into the pit in time, you know, and you run out of gas and you're in the middle of the desert, something like that? I mean, there are so many things that have to go right for you just to finish a race like Vegas to Reno. And man, it is so impressive and almost overwhelming to finally experience those things firsthand.
Yeah, well, you know, and like you said, there's so many moving pieces, and I think that's one thing that I appreciate about desert racing. And honestly, that's one thing and I'm a off-road guy here in the States, but I don't think people understand about Dakar is you know, they do that for 2 weeks straight. Like, you know what I mean? That's crazy. They're moving, and their moving pieces are so much bigger than ours. Like, and we ran a skeleton crew at this one. We go down to Baja, and we have, you know, double to triple the amount of trucks and rigs and people as we did at Vegas to Reno. Vegas to Reno, actually, in the big scheme of things, very easy to chase. But Dakar, man, they're moving small cities every single day for 2 weeks. Like, to me, that's nuts. And I haven't been there, but everybody that I've said, they're like, think of Vegas to Reno or think of Baja and think of it tenfold, because they're like, that's how big it is. You know, it's literally moving parts. And instead of across an entire state, they're moving it across entire countries. Like, to me, that's crazy, Chris, you know, to even think about the scale of something like Dakar.
Yeah, Jim. I mean, I was overwhelmed, and you can tell I'm still overwhelmed enough as it is just talking about this one. So, man, I can't even wrap my head around Dakar. I don't know that I'm going to be doing any international travel anytime soon. I moved over the winter, and I am still looking for that passport without hopefully having to order another one. But, you know, you see everything that goes into Dakar, and not to mention the fact that they are able to put together the media coverage that they are on Dakar as well. And, you know, as somebody who watched every single one of those broadcasts that we got to see from the previous year, as somebody who wrote up a ton of recaps, you know, for the downanddirtyshow.com website, just having to pull all of those photos, all of those images, all of those quotes. I mean, there is so much that goes into that. It's tough enough to do that sitting still in a 3-story scaffolding tower looking over a 3/4 mile racetrack like I did in GRC for years. It's tough enough to get it all done there. The fact that you're also traversing an entire continent, I mean, power to those folks. I think I would need to change my diet and get a hell of a lot healthier before I could ever even fathom approaching that.
Yeah, no joke. You and me both, man. One thing I will say, though, is I appreciate about working in motorsport, and I know, like we've talked about, just the drain, and, you know, you've scaled back a lot on how many events you're going to. And but one thing I can appreciate is, like, I've been so many places in this country. Literally, I've been in, you know, I live in Arizona. I'm in California all the time. I've been across Nevada. I've been all the way up to Maine. You know what I mean, to one corner, and Seattle in the other corner, you know what I mean? And I've been on the East Coast, and, you know, Atlanta and Charlotte, and, like, I've seen Middle America and, you know, Indy and Minnesota and Wisconsin and, you know, Northern Michigan, the UP. Like, I've been to so many places in this country that most people will never have the opportunity to travel to, just because motorsport, you know, it doesn't care. You know, if there's a good place to run an event, people run an event there, and people will come. And, like, I guess I'm so fortunate. I've seen so many places around this country, and most people, like, they go, oh, I'm a traveler. You know, I've been to Florida, I've been to LA, I've been to New York. Yeah, but what have you really seen other than buildings? You know what I mean? And maybe some monuments. Like, I feel like I've seen America. You've seen America. You know what I mean? And that's one thing I appreciate about motorsport is we've seen stuff that nobody else in this country probably ever will. I mean, for that matter, I've probably seen parts of this country that the president hasn't seen. You know what I mean? And I think, like, I don't, like, to me, I like that because, you know, when I talk about the country, I can be like, oh, yeah, I've been there. You know what I mean? And not to some big city. I've actually, you know, met people and tried the food. And like, you know, man, food from one coast to the other, there's American food. But, man, I tell you what, everything in between is it's a whole lot different, you know. So I don't know. I just appreciate, you know, what motorsport has given me as much as sometimes the travel does get to be, you know, like overwhelming at times.
Yeah, and, you know, Jim, one of the things about a race like this, it actually brought me back to my very first GRC race. And that actually was not in the United States. We actually had to go all the way down to Brazil. We were part of that 1 year of X Games where they did the 4 international ones. So we were down in Brazil, and I was in Boston. I was in my last semester of college. I think it was about a month away from graduating. And the day I am scheduled to fly out for this, the Boston Marathon bombing happened. And so I got stuck in Boston an extra 2 days. And you can imagine that when I ended up in Detroit to transfer for a flight to Sao Paulo, they were certainly very interested in why I was leaving the country from Boston. But, you know, it finally ended up making it. It was like a 5-day saga. And as somebody who hadn't left North America in my life, I mean, it was the same concept. It was just, you know, being down in Brazil, and I don't speak a lick of Portuguese. I don't even speak a lick of Spanish. So I'm basically going into cabs with flyers from the hotel, pointing at things, pointing at myself, saying stupid American, sharing a laugh with the cab driver, and moving forward. And just ending up down there, seeing some of the waterfalls that they had in Iguazu, which is where X Games ran. I mean, it's the same concept though. And a race like Vegas to Reno just kind of brings those feelings back where yeah, the travel can be exhausting. Yeah, it can be difficult. I mean, obviously it sucked to lose GRC for 2018. I was excited for that. I loved the 5 years that I spent at that company with those drivers, with my colleagues, but it was nice to kind of have a reset year where I didn't travel very much. But, you know, going to a race like Vegas to Reno, you just kind of see everything that goes on, and you remember why you love it, and you remember not to take it for granted, and you remember that, yeah, even though you're running on 3 hours of sleep and a full country's worth of jet lag, you remember just how cool it is to, and not that I feel like any of us in motorsport take for granted how cool it is to be involved, but, you know, it brings it way back to the forefront, just with everything you experience in doing a race like that. And, you know, just seeing some of the people you get to see, seeing some of the vehicles you get to see, just some of the ingenuity and innovation in the vehicles. I mean, I know we had an all-wheel drive winner in trick truck with Bryce Menzies, and I know that the all-wheel drive trick trucks have kind of been all the rage over the past couple of years, that they've sort of been starting to show up. And just getting to see that stuff, it's so different from everything that I grew up with, you know, especially in New England, where I'm just kind of seeing, you know, ovals of up to a mile long, and maybe just maybe now and again heading out to a road course in, you know, Montreal or Watkins Glen. But it's so different, and it's so cool to, when you're not from a particular discipline of motorsport, to go see another one, and when you're not from a particular area of America, going to that new area and getting to experience it.
Yeah, for sure. So talking about, you know, Vegas to Reno and Bryce Menzies in the all-wheel drive truck taking the overall. I know, I don't know how we're going to approach this. Obviously, you and I have been rambling on about everything, but I guess we'll just kind of give a rundown. I know we're hitting this on our power rankings this week, you know, on the national show, but kind of go more in depth on the results. Just talk about you know, a couple of the cases of people we thought were mighty impressive, and obviously we got to talk about Menzies overall in trick truck. I know last year, man, Bryce came so close to taking the overall. Ended up having an issue, but he came back this year. He won it. You know, and I will say last year, you know, Johnny Angel, what an amazing effort he had to take that victory. But yeah, Menzies this year coming back, battling back to take the victory. He's got that new co-driver, Orrin Anderson, also AKA O-Ring. I know you actually worked with his wife there, who worked for USAC for a long time, Carrie. I can't even think of her maiden last name, but yeah, Menzies with the overall, man, just. It was a great effort, almost by 10 minutes over number 2, who was, this was honestly probably one of the most impressive things at Vegas to Reno. CJ Hutchins, General Tire driver, my teammate there, but he took a class 1500 and put that into second overall. And to me, that's a hell of an effort, Chris, for a 1500 to take second overall at Vegas to Reno, man. So 1 and 2 there, Menzies and CJ Hutchins, both those efforts just phenomenal.
Yeah, definitely, Jim. I mean, you know, I can wax poetic, as I already have, about the effort that it takes to finish a race like this. But for CJ to be, I think it was about within 10 minutes,
9 minutes
of Bryce on the overall, it was relatively close. I mean, for a race like that, single-digit minutes, even low double-digit minutes, feels like a photo finish in some ways. But, you know, yeah, CJ Hutchins, I know he had come off a victory at Silver State, so going back-to-back is always a nice little accomplishment, and I know he was on the podium at the Mint as well, so they've been putting together a great season on their General Tires. Yeah, I mean, what can you say about Bryce that hasn't already been said? I mean, he came heartbreakingly close to winning Vegas to Reno last year, and that was the debut of that all-wheel drive trick truck that they had built, that they had, you know, sunk so much engineering and effort into to make that the best possible truck. And it was kind of a freak thing, the fact that they weren't able to take that. But, you know, the other one that I just kind of want to bring up, who was third on the overall podium and second in the trick truck class, Jason Voss. And I know that Jason has been one of the most accomplished drivers at Vegas to Reno. He won 4 of the past 6 years, I believe it was, including this year. 3 in a row from 13 to 15, and then again in 17. And he's just always there at that race. And I mean, yeah, you don't always have you don't always end up taking the wins, but if you can keep podiuming at a race like that, man, that's not a little 100-lap feature at your local dirt track, man. That is really impressive. So, Jason Voss was another one that to me stood out. And don't forget the Camberg guys in class 6100, 8th overall. That is nuts.
And only 20 minutes. Only 20 minutes off the pace. They started back behind all the trick trucks and class 1s or class 1500 cars. They're called Best in the Desert. Kyle Jurgensen, I think, drove that thing wire to wire. I talked to Jerry Zayden on the phone this week. He'll be one of our guests coming up in the next week or two. Always fun to have Jerry on and talk industry talk and, racing and stuff. But, man, like you said, phenomenal effort for them to finish that high up at a 6100 truck. And then, right outside, Travis Chase is a very good friend of mine, and another General Tire driver finishing 11th overall. He was, he was within an hour of the leader as well, man. So these 6100 trucks, Jason Coleman, I think this was the debut of his new truck. He's a past guest on the show. He finished 3rd in 6100 and 12th overall. That was a debut of that brand new truck of his. So, Chris, these 6100s, we know this class is growing and growing and growing, but, man, they're getting so fast. It's like they're blurring the lines between trophy truck and, as Score calls them, trophy truck spec. It's, I don't know. It's interesting, what's happening there. And then you go back and we've got class 10, which would, quote, be, I guess, class 1 light almost. And, we've got Wheeler Morgan there. He was in the top 20 overall in a class 10 car. So, I don't know, interesting. And then we move down to somebody that we talk about a lot on the national show. You can chime in on this, but first overall, back to back, we're talking first overall in the UTV, back Vegas to Reno wins. He's coming off a win at the UTV World, Silver State, and now Vegas to Reno. Phil Blurton, 21st overall in a UTV, Chris. This is just, Phil was on a blistering pace.
Yeah, Jim. It's crazy just how quickly UTV racing has advanced, in the world of off-road. We see it in short course. Some of the guys who have gotten involved in the short course, you see it firsthand out in the desert because, so much of your race program over the past couple of years has been focused on UTV turbo. And I know that you can speak 1,000 times better than I ever can to the level of competition, but some of the guys who have been involved in some of the results that we've seen, again, Phil Blurton, 3 in a row, both on the season and at this race. There's no doubt in my mind that he's going to go lock up another championship. But, some of the guys and girls who weren't able to finish this race in UTVs, tough weekend for the Matlocks. For one, both Wayne and Kristen having to take DNFs. And, Wayne is the defending score overall champion, not just the UTV champion, but the overall score champion. And, had some mechanical heartbreak and wasn't able to finish the race. I know that Kristen Matlock was challenging Seth Quintero in UTV production for quite a bit and unfortunately wasn't able to finish either. And, geez, what can you say about Seth, too? Perfect Best in the Desert season so far. That is...
Perfect season in anything isn't easy. Even when there's, even when you're racing in a division that maybe doesn't have a lot of entries, which is not the case in UTV production. That's a stack field. Like you said, Kristen Matlock, Orlena's in there. It's a stack field, So, for Seth to do what he's doing, and this kid is, he's just started his senior year in high school, and It's crazy to me how good this kid is. And I've known Seth since I think he was 12 years old. He's racing like a Razor 570 or something. But, this kid is just ridiculous. And, I've said it before and I'll say it again. And he's one of our guests this week. But, I hope that he stays in production 1,000 for another couple of years. I hope he doesn't make the jump to turbo because – I think it's like guys who win those Supercross 250 championships and they win one right out of the box and immediately jump up to 450s and get lost in the mix. I would rather see Seth stay in production, keep taking those victories, keep learning and running up front, and then move up to turbo in a year or two. You know what I mean? I think there's no reason to rush it. Not saying he can't compete in turbo, but I think, gosh, the kid is so phenomenal. Like, I hope he stays in production 1,000 for another year or two, keeps clicking off these championships, gets that skill set. And, I mean, I am biggest fan of Seth Quintero. I've got so many friends that are running in 1,000 right now, but I'm hoping that he seals the deal at Laughlin. And how special would that be for this kid to have a perfect season in Best in the Desert? You know, and, I mean, that's crazy. Mint 400, UTV Worlds, Vegas to Reno, winning these marquee events. Like, crazy, Chris.
For sure, Jim. I mean, you know, speaking to whether or not Seth moves up after this year, I mean, I know that most of our off-road listeners know what Haley Deegan is doing over in NASCAR, but one of the biggest things that I think has worked in Haley's favor has been the fact that they have not rushed her up the ladder. She hasn't made a national series start yet. She hasn't moved up to a truck. She hasn't moved up to Xfinity, and I'm sure that will come fairly soon. But they're making sure that she develops properly in some of the K&N cars. And, you know, you're spot on with that assessment of Seth. I mean, I think he's ready for UTV Turbo. I think everybody thinks he's ready. But, yeah, in all sorts of forms of motorsports, I mean, you see somebody move up. And, I mean, think about in Supercross with Cooper Webb. And Cooper Webb just had a couple of lost years on a 450 with Yamaha until he ended up moving over to KTM, and then this year flat out exploded and was the premier rider in Supercross, took his first victory, and then the floodgates opened and went and won a championship. And, you know, I think if you move up a little too early, you get discouraged. Seth, I think, would be fine. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you in that if he stays in UTV production and just kind of strings together season after season after season of wins and titles, then, you know, I think that builds you up even a little bit more. And obviously we're not just racing on talent and merit, we're racing on sponsorship too. And, you know, I think if you can put together that kind of resume where you've got multiple years of performances like that, then I think you secure yourself even more long-term. And, you know, again, if he's just starting his last year of high school, then he has got time. Plenty of it.
Well, and you look at his three main partners, Polaris RZR, Red Bull, and BF Goodrich, you know, they've got drivers in, you know, all kinds of divisions. I think it's a long play with Seth, and rightfully so, you know what I mean? Like, you know, but I look at his three main partners, their companies, they're not exiting anytime soon. They're with him. You know, they're ride or die with Seth Quintero. And, you know, I think they want him to mature because, you know, I mean, really, you know, look at Polaris. They've got, you know, Mitchie and Sims and, you know, and Lambert. And, I mean, the list goes on, you know, of guys they've got, the Matlocks and stuff like that. You know, BFG, you know, they've got a list of athletes, but start at the top with Rob Mack. You know, you look at Red Bull, Menzies, you know, I mean, there's no reason to push Seth. You know, they don't need a new guy up at the top. You know, I think they're you know, they got him at the bottom, not at the bottom, but, you know, they knew there was talent, but it was like, you know, it was a long play. So I think, you know, the good news is I don't think his sponsors are going to push him to that next division. I think, you know, I think they're going to sit there and they're going to keep watering the plant and watching it grow and watering the plant and watching it grow. You know, and I think it was a long play by them. They want Seth, you know, to be hitting his prime at 21 years old. You know, they're not wanting to push him at 16, 17. And you know, I think it's a long play. And, you know, these are companies that could be with him until he's, you know, mid 30s or 40 years old, you know? So it's interesting. You know what I mean? We haven't seen somebody this talented, this young in off-road in a very, very, very long time. I mean, I'm thinking the last person that I can remember that was this good, this young, was Andy McMillan. Seriously, and I would argue with anybody. You know what I mean? There's been a lot of guys that were that fast, but I mean that were winning championships and doing what Seth's doing. Andy McMillan, you know, that's the full package like Seth is. So, you know, we're having to go back into the early 2000s for that, you know, almost, you know, Andy's, you know, we're talking when Andy was 16, you know, so, I don't know, man. It's, you look before that, you look at guys like, obviously Robbie Gordon, Rob Mack, there was guys like that. But, I think Andy McMillan, Seth is this generation's Andy McMillan, and Andy got pushed to the forefront early on. And truth be told, Andy will tell you, he burned out. He quit for a while. And Andy just said he just flat got burned out, and I think, because he was pushed and he had these corporate sponsors like Red Bull and BF Goodrich at the time and things like that. And, they weren't expecting anything over the top. But I think for a young kid like that, he just got flat burnt out. And he took a couple years off, and now look what it's done. And he's, arguably one of the greatest of all time, and he's still only, low 30s in age. And you're already putting him in that conversation with Rob Mack as one of the GOATs of all time. You look at his resume, and Andy's there, like with his wins. It's crazy to even talk about that, But, I hope they just let Seth do Seth things and, don't push him and just kind of, slow burn,
Yeah, definitely. And I guess it kind of makes it irresponsible to talk too far in the future about a guy like Seth Quintero. But, there's part of me, and this is with any racing series, and I think you kind of have to, because it's part of what motorsport culture is right now and just what everybody is doing to try to develop young talent. But, it's definitely tantalizing to think about the prospects of where he's going to be 5 years from now, where he's going to be 10 years from now. It's hard to fathom what the off-road landscape is going to look like even a couple of years from now. We've got some schedule changes in the works. I know that obviously the Mint 400 and the UTV Worlds have moved to independent sanctioning with the Martellis for 2020. Best in the Desert is introducing a couple of new events, I believe, to fill out the schedule in their place. The Score schedule is shifted with the addition of the Baja 400. A lot of things can change. And in 10 years, it's almost silly of me to say that. Geez, like my barometer, my benchmark always has to be my time in GRC, because that was what launched my career. But 10 years, our sport in America didn't even last 10 years, we made it through 7 seasons. There have been a couple since then, and just everything. You have no idea what 2020 is even going to look like. So to be speculating on a kid like Seth Quintero and what he's going to look like as a racer at 27 when he's 17 right now, it just kind of seems ludicrous. But you've got that much talent there, and you've got that much support. And not only that, you've got that much support that's committed to doing this the right way. The sky is the limit.
Yeah, no, sky is the limit for Seth. And I think, you hate to say it, but I think a kid this talented has everybody salivating, and I mean that in the best possible way. You know what I mean? It's just people know, and, they want to hitch their ride, or, they want to hitch their trailer to, the next big thing. And obviously Seth at this point, he is that next big thing, and thankfully I know his parents really well. Aaron and Amy, they're just phenomenal, good people. They keep him grounded. Some of the nicest people you'll ever meet. And, they don't push him. They're, it's very much a family effort. They haven't tried to get too big or anything like that. So, it's really kind of cool what is going on there. So, and they've let Seth be a kid. And I think that's, that's something that's crucial, because you and I have seen it, whether it be in racing or action sports or just stick and ball sports. Like, parents can be rabid, man, pushing their kids too hard to the point where kids hate it, and it's one thing to Seth's parents' credit. They've never done that with him. So, I don't know, Chris, man, that's kind of where we're at. I'm just kind of bouncing through here and looking at things. And, I know we didn't even talk about, motorcycles or anything like that. Give a big shout out there to Skylar Howes and Kevin DeJong, who took the overall victory in Open Pro in motorcycles on a KTM. So big shout out to them. I know there was an all-female team too that I believe finished with 4 ladies. I'm trying to get the full rundown of what their names were because I don't want to butcher that. But anytime, Chris, there's like an all-female team, you definitely got to give them credit especially for finishing a race like Vegas to Reno. That's I don't know. That's no easy task.
For sure, Jim. I mean, everybody, I think, is committed to more diversity in motorsports and just trying to bring in, people from different backgrounds and, just try to make the racer population look a little more like the general population. So, yeah, anytime you can get a team together, of 4 women who are able to finish like that, that's a phenomenal accomplishment. Obviously, it's a phenomenal accomplishment for them anyway, no matter who you are, to finish a race like this. But, for the sport, it's also just a great sign that those development efforts are working, that people are interested, that people are sticking with it. That's really important, for the future of any discipline of motorsports. So that's really great to see as well.
Yeah, they finished third in class. Sierra Aguilera, Jody Hyman, Krista Conway, Taylor Hyman. So third in class. Props to them. I know it was crazy. We finished, 12:30 at night, I think, and about midnight we were coming towards the finish. We were about 15 miles out. We saw these weird lights, Brian and I did, and we get to him, and I'm like, what is that? And he's like, I don't know. It was actually 2 dirt bikes riding side by side trying to get to the finish, and he and I started thinking, and I'm like, we gave them all kinds of room. They had to have been so tired at that point, and it was 2 friends, you know what I mean, or 2 riders. I don't know if they were friends, but that late in the race, you link up and you've got a buddy, and it's like, hey, let's get to the finish. Let's do this thing together. And you know what I mean? That was kind of rad to see. And I know we came up on them, and we had our lights on and everything. And honestly, I just laid way, way back. And we were in some rocks, and it was bad. And we waited back there for a minute or two, and they finally found a spot to pull over, and they pulled over, and we got way to the left when we went around them. I didn't get on the gas. I didn't want to rock them. I'm just like, anybody that can start a race at 5 a.m. and it's midnight, you've been on a dirt bike a long freaking time, and I'm going to give you some space because you're only 15 miles from the finish. I want you to get to the finish, and so big props to them. I don't know who they were, but that race was just eventful for us. Thankful to get to the finish. Thankful you don't feel like you've been a curse anymore, so I guess that's always a good thing, Chris. But I know that's one of my favorite races of the year, so we'll definitely earmark your calendar for mid-August next year, Chris.
Oh, definitely, Jim. And not only that, but in a couple of weeks' time, we're heading out to Crandon for the 50th anniversary of the World Championship off-road races. And that'll be my first time at Crandon. I know it won't even be your first time there this year because you called the brush run, but I am super stoked for that, and especially excited that we're going to see some of the same faces that we saw at Vegas to Reno. I'm sure Bryce will be there trying to defend that Pro 4 World Championship from last year. I know that Rob Mack didn't make it last year, but I am hoping that he's going to be there this
It's
year.
official. There was a social post. It is official. I know RJ Anderson will be there. So we've got some big heavy hitters from the West Coast. I mean, the biggest of heavy hitters from the West Coast making their way out there. It's definitely going to be exciting. Crandon, I mean, like I said, to me, you've got a couple of places that are just sacred in the world of motorsports in this country. Indianapolis Motor Speedway, one of them. Obviously, Daytona Speedway, another one. But Crandon, I have always said, and I've had people laugh, and then I've had people go there, and then I've had people go, you were right. But Crandon, they call it the big house for a reason. It is special. It is, to me, it is on par with Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Daytona, and I'm anxious to see what you think after you go, Chris, because you and 50,000 of your closest friends are going to be there, and I got to tell you, Sunday for that Cup race, when there's that many people on their feet, you know what I mean? It's wild.
Man, I just hope that they got enough cell service for us to accommodate doing what we want to do in just getting that content out as quick as possible. I mean, I was lucky enough that I watched, I think, the live stream last year, and I was able to get a story out about the race within 15 minutes of them finishing up, I think it was. But that's because I was doing it from my couch at home. So I'm hoping that we don't have to sacrifice speed for me getting the full Crandon treatment because, the fans deserve to hear about everything that's gone down as soon as it happens. And, that's one of the things that was really cool about our efforts at Vegas to Reno, is that we had, multiple people doing media, Brittany and Eric out on the course, and then me from the chase truck, doing updates and making sure everybody knew how we were doing and where we were coming from and all that stuff throughout the event. So, that's my plan for every single event that I ever do and have ever done. So, I'm looking forward to hopefully being able to accomplish the same thing out at Crandon. And, definitely I'll stop for a little bit to take it all in and just see what being at the big house is all about. But man, we are there to serve the fans, and, you're there to call the race, and I am there to make sure that the info gets out as quickly as we can. I know we're going to have a preview magazine coming out like we've done for a number of races this year. I am just about to put the finishing touches on that later today. So really excited to get that out there, and hopefully some other exciting news too.
Yeah, lots of big, exciting news, Chris. Thank you for taking the time to call in and do this recap of Vegas to Reno, my friend, and we'll see you out at Crandon next week.
Oh, man, that was a hell of a ride. Go check out mymedic.com for the best first aid kits on the planet and save 15% with discount code Jim Beaver. Again, mymedic.com, discount code Jim Beaver, and save 15%. It's cheaper than a feeling.
Life is all about sound. The sound of sports. The sound at the racetrack. And the sound of your vehicle. Don't drive around listening to this. Drive around listening to the sound of performance. Gibson Performance. Gibson Performance Exhaust is the company who can turn this into this. Remember that life is all about sound, and Gibson Exhaust is the sound of performance. Check out your next catback exhaust system, headers, muffler, or UTV exhaust at GibsonPerformance.com and get more power and more sound.
Looking to have some fun on four wheels? Dirtfish Rally School has you covered. Packing as much adrenaline and adventure as you can handle into high-performance all-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive Subaru rally cars is where the fun begins at Dirtfish. Just 30 minutes outside of Seattle and Snoqualmie, you'll get a chance to train up to 3 full days with some of the country's best instructors and be put through the high-octane rush of rally on mud, dirt, and tarmac. Get started today and call 425-888-7715 or visit us online at dirtfish.com and use code 911 for a 15% discount. All right, well, we are back here on the 4 Wheel Parts Down and Dirty Radio Show Off-Road Edition, powered by Polaris RZR. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure and check out the national show. Seth Quintero, Leah Pritchett on this week. Also got my podcast, Project Action, on Podcast One. Make sure and check that out. Both of them on iTunes. Rate, review, subscribe, all that good stuff. Check me out on social media. It is at JimBeaver15. I will, I'd love to follow you guys back. Give me a follow, man, and let me know you're a listener to the show. Big shout out to Polaris RZR, General Tire, 4 Wheel Parts, My Medic, Vision Wheel, Gibson Exhaust, Dirtfish Rally School. Don't forget, use the coupon code DOWNDIRTYDF. That's going to get you 15% off at Dirtfish. And My Medic, the coupon code is Jim Beaver. That'll get you 15% off at My Medic. Also got our good friends at Super ATV who are supporting the show. Thank you guys for the continued support. Like I said, next week I'll be en route to Crandon. We will have a national show. We will have a podcast. Also got our 400th episode of the national show coming up in I believe it's going to be September 10th. We're going to drop that, so be tuning in. It's going to be some good shit for sure. So yes, thank you guys once again for the continued support. You keep me in business, keep me doing what I'm doing. Thanks to everybody who continues to give me the feedback, tell me you're listening to the show. I appreciate it. And with that, I think we're going to sign off this week. Hopefully you guys have a great weekend. Be safe, and we'll see you next week right here on the 4 Wheel Parts Down and Dirty Show Off-Road Edition, powered by Polaris RZR.
4WP is more than a store. We're truck and Jeep experts and have been for over 50 years. From wheel and tire upgrades to full custom builds, 4WP has you covered. Whether you want to order the best parts online or shop in store, do the work yourself, or get it done by a pro, all roads lead to 4WP. Do your rig right. Shop online or find your store at 4WP.com.